so let's talk game. We've done a bunch of stuff to the game. A big first thing we did. Oh my God, look how beautiful our Fog of War is now. And you can't really, it doesn't show up very well on stream. This big black area here is not actually black. It shows up much, much darker on stream than it shows up in real life, I guess. I don't know why. You can actually kind of see the layout of the land behind there. Again, I'm looking over on OBS and you can't see it on stream, but on my computer you can see it just fine. So when you're playing the game, you can actually see, oh look, there's water here and there's some buildings here. So it's not a full Fog of War in the sense that I have no idea what the land looks like. I can kind of scroll around and be like, oh, okay, that's, you know, what's back there. I can kind of get some idea of it. But I can't tell, for instance, where units are or where stuff like that is. There was some discussion about, is the Fog of War too close in, blah, blah, blah. One of the reasons it looks very close in this map, you'll notice it's not very close in down here in the water. It's actually quite a ways away. That's like 5 hexes away. But it actually seems quite close in here. It's close in here because one of the things our Fog of War does is it does respond to vegetation and things like that. If I were to summon myself a flying unit, the flying units actually, so right now I can't really, there's a jungle there and I can't really see into the jungle. And we do this because we want to have people be able to like hide in the jungle, which is cool, right? Hiding in the jungle is cool stuff. And it's part of your strategy. I'll bring my guys through the jungle and he won't see me in the jungle and that's nice. So if I get a flying unit, he actually is up above the jungle. So the minute I get the flying unit, you can see, oh, I can actually see a lot deeper into that jungle. And because he's a flying unit, obviously I can drive him right into the jungle and he can actually see all deep into that jungle and see what's going on. Where if I were to drive Zangor here, who's obviously not flying, he wouldn't have nearly the range of vision that my flying unit does. And so it creates kind of a fun strategy. We haven't done it yet. I'm going to change it so that if you have tall buildings like towers, that'll be the same as flying. So you'll be able to, if you build a watchtower, you'll be able to see over the jungle. We're getting to it bit by bit, but that's a thing in the game. But mostly just look how beautiful the Fog of War looks now. Our game looks like a real game and it doesn't look like some sort of placeholder thing. So I'm really happy with that. We actually went through a lot of stuff. There were a number of suggestions put over in Discord and I may have looked like I ignored them, but we were just really busy. Somebody was like, hey, why don't you do your Fog of War so it looks like the terrain, but it's hand-drawn? Obviously, that's very difficult to do if you're doing a map editor where you can lay down tiles very quickly. But we actually gave it a go where we said, well, what if we replace these tiles with more hand-drawn looking tiles? We did. We actually had a version of that up and running, and we went through 5 or 6 different versions of the background tiles, and they all looked crap. Other things we did, it's been sitting there staring at you on the screen. Oh my God, look at all of this beautiful user interface. Oh my God, is it not pretty? Wait, I'm in the way. You can't see the pretty bits. Let's talk about it for a minute. I'll put me in the middle for a second while we talk about this. We looked at the old user interface and it was very blocky, and I didn't feel that blockiness, that square utilitarian blockiness really fit with our dreams of being a Baroque style game, and it just looked ugly. So you can see what we've got down here. These two things here, these are your traits. These tell you about yourself. So you have stealth and you have the ability to build things. Those are not clickable. You can't actually do anything with those. You can't click those or do anything. Those are just telling you that that's some stuff that you have. These up here, these are the actual things that you can do. I can click that and it makes something happen. So we've separated those out so you clearly know these are things that I can make happen in the world. And it's actually kind of cool because these things actually, there's more or less of them based on how much stuff you can do. So this Batwing builder, right now, he can't do crap, right? I mean, basically, he can just go attack dudes. So he doesn't get any of those buttons. But Zangor, because he's got like 1,000 abilities, Zangor's got a whole bunch of buttons. Let's say I were to build this, this field artillery. When I click on him, he's going to have his abilities, which is less than Zangor, but more than the Batwing builders. He can shoot off some cannons, and he can shoot some grape shot and whatnot. I like this. It really clearly shows what you can and can't do. It also looks pretty good. You'll notice that there's only one hero. This is a change we made. Look, you have your one hero. There are 8 dudes that come with your hero. The 8 dudes that come with your hero could be from the hero faction, or they could come from what we have called the mercenary faction. Thank you, Merlin. The mercenary faction is people who don't come from a particular faction. And what this does, and there's a whole reason behind this. I wanted to make it so that you really had a feeling for, I'm playing this guy. I'm playing Zangor. And because I'm playing Zangor, with Zangor, I get this, this, and this. And with Zangor, you get monkeys. And so I know when I pick Zangor, I'm going to get some monkeys. But if it's all monkeys, it's kind of not fun. It gets back to the world of Callasia where it was like, okay, I know how to play the monkeys, right? So what I want to do, I also want to have units that are like, you know, these horses and this Beastmaster, this great big Tentaclor that anybody can use. And so the fun is figuring out, okay, I've got this pool of other people that I can mix with my monkeys. And once I mix my monkeys with my other people, then I've got all these kind of interesting things. But there's some specific people that can't ever be matched with anybody else. So I can never match one of these monkeys with, say, the Red Keep Griffin Dragoons, because the Griffin Dragoons come with Red Keep, and that's, if you want them, you got to be with Red Keep, and you only get one hero. The other thing that's nice is it simplifies out on the map how many heroes I got wandering around. At one point, we had 3 heroes per player, and it was just like every fucking unit was a hero, and it was like that the heroes don't seem very special or interesting to me because the screen's full of heroes. But now, if you see somebody's hero, you're like, dude, that's his hero. He's only got one of those. Fuck him up. That's cool. That's fun. That's interesting gameplay. So that's a thing that we did. So we'll see how that plays out. We were playing it this week. I actually like how that plays. I'm happy with that change. So that seems to be positive. We'll see. We did a new thing that we had talked about doing before, but we had not gotten around to doing before. One of the changes in the game recently, I don't know if I've talked about it in earlier things, anyone can build now. And so I can have this field artillery if I want. They can build themselves a tower if they feel so inclined. Anyone in the game can build now, which I think makes the game go a little bit faster because you don't have to drag around a building unit and you don't have to waste one of your slots for a guy that builds. So now anyone can build, but there's a new thing. You can also raise. You can actually destroy stuff. Now, there's 2 kinds of structure in the game. There are permanent structures like this village, which are big things that it really doesn't make sense that you could build this from the very beginning. Like, you know, you're out destroying the world and you're like, oh, let's stop and build a village. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So what we can do is we can put in permanent structures like villages and cathedrals and temples and things like that. And this is important for single player because I don't want the player to be able to completely destroy those and replace them with a barracks, because that might be an item that we care about in the story. The story in this mission might be go and, you know, defend the cathedral, and it makes more sense if I can, you know, give it a name and make it a thing, right? So here's my village, my Gnarl village, and I later on I can give it a name and call it things and whatnot. I can still destroy it, but I can't completely destroy it. And you'll have to excuse me, we don't have the art yet. So it's going to disappear. But what actually, oh, I forgot I destroyed that tower. Burn, baby, burn. So anyway, if I bring Zangor over here, Zangor can actually destroy the village. And this will change. Later on, it won't say raise. It'll say pillage, and it'll have a different piece of art for the thing. And when you pillage, it doesn't remove it entirely. It actually just creates a burned out version of that thing, which I don't have the burned out version right now, but later on, imagine we now have a burned out village. And so when you pillage the village, you'll actually get money for having pillaged the village. And now the village becomes worthless until somebody comes over, uses the build button, and rebuilds the village. But of course, it's going to cost a big butt ton of money to rebuild the village. So now you can go raid somebody else's area, pillage his villages, and then if he wants his villages back, he's actually got to, you know, rebuild them from scratch with the with that cost. So it's a way that you can go in and like really damage people really quick. So that's a thing now, and that's literally brand new as of this morning. I was working on that late last night. It's still got some issues and whatnot, but it's getting there. Anyway, so that's a new thing. What else? Oh, this is a big change. Big, huge change. We used to have It used to be that all of these abilities had a cooldown. So you could use this ability once, and then you had to wait for a certain amount of time for you to be able to use it again. We ran into some problems when we were testing earlier this week, and one of the problems was the buildings just didn't seem important enough. The gold and the economy of the gold didn't seem important enough, and we were like, why do I even bother building? Why don't you just build a bunch of units and go just rage into somebody's city and destroy it? And because you could save up all your abilities and use them all at once, you could really kind of bang into somebody pretty hard. It didn't work very well, and we didn't like it. Back in the day, when we originally designed this game, we actually didn't have cooldowns for the powers. We actually had the powers be used by spending gold, kind of like the same way in Hearthstone you use the same gems to buy units as you use to throw spells. We removed that because it made the buildings too important. And back then you couldn't, remember, there was a point in this game where you couldn't build buildings. We added that. And back when you couldn't build buildings, having the entire game based around the gold, around the buildings that you couldn't build, it put way too much power onto the maps, and it made it the game changed way too much map to map, and I was worried that that was a problem, and I wanted it to be something the player had more control over. So we changed it to a cooldown mechanic. Now that we actually have buildings that you can build, and you can have some control over that, we actually, it wasn't my idea, it was Nelson's idea. Nelson was like, hey, can we actually pay for the powers? And it was funny because he came onto the project after we had already removed that. So he didn't actually know that it used to be like that. He was genuinely coming up with it as though it were an original idea. He was like, oh, we could do this thing. And I was like, it used to be like that. And so I said, we've still got all the code in. Let's just do it and try. So we played yesterday with that in like that. And with being able to build the buildings, it actually plays much better this way. It puts a real limitation. So now, for instance, if I want to shoot off these guns, I don't have to wait, 5 turns for me to be able to do my grape shot again. I just have to wait until I got 15 gold again. So, all right, fine, let's shoot this thing off. And when I shoot this thing off, I'm gonna burn out. When I played it, I used some of my cash. It actually works pretty well. So one of the nice things about it is, now, it used to be like if I used this ability, I would have to wait a certain number of turns before I could use it again. And it became like with a rifleman, it would be like, shoot, okay, now you can't shoot for turn, so move, and then shoot, and then move. And it was kind of, it kind of sucked. Now, if you've got artillery and you've got the money, you can just sit here and wail on somebody with your artillery for a while. But when you're doing this, it's chewing through all your cash, which means I'm not summoning people somewhere else. I'm not using abilities somewhere else. So I'm putting all my energy here, banging on some guy over here. It actually plays nice. I like it as a change. I'm reasonably happy with that change. We still have a lot more playtesting to do, but in general, I like that change. All right, that's what I got. Bye bye, guys.